Before you ask yourself why, you might be asking yourself, what? So for those who never heard of this movie, Mummies is a Spanish animated comedy film distributed by Warner Bros. So of course I watched this on Hulu, bored one day, thinking to myself, why not? So I put it on for the next 90 minutes, and at most I was immersed in this movie was by how awful it is. So sure, this is months after it came out, and from what I looked up, it did well enough at the box office for a profit, so I don't think anything I'm saying is that new or make a difference. But if this is one of the worst movies I've seen this year so far, I might as well talk about it. It's not the worst. I mean, it's one of the worst, but not the worst. And I can kind of get why others would like it, in the sense that people can have a different opinion, and that's the end of that sentence. I could say more about the production of this movie, but I don't honestly care, and I usually do, but honestly this feels like a knockoff movie without the obvious movie they're knocking off, and I'll get into more and why in a bit. With that being said, I should explain what this movie is about. So Mummies is about literal mummies, and when I think mummies in real life and not in movies, a mummy is basically the dead body of someone so a human or animal whose soft tissues and organs are preserved as they cross over into the afterlife, or at least as far as I know, because that way it keeps the body from decaying. According to this movie, those who die and presumably get mummified go to the afterlife where anyway, so yeah, the plot. So, in this afterlife, this British archaeologist named Sylverster Carnaby, voiced by Hugh Bonneville, discovers a tomb of a princess that leads to the literal afterlife, where it's basically the exact same as the life they live, I guess, though without the slaves. Former charioteer Thut, voiced by Joe Thomas, enjoys the fame and lack of responsibility he now lives in, till his younger brother Sekhem, voiced by Santiago Winder, accidentally makes it look like Thut's chosen to marry the Princess Nefer, voiced by Eleanor Tomlinson. I feel like I said that name wrong, but I'm too tired. Which he has no choice to do so or have his eyes and tongue plucked out. He's given this ring to keep but not lose, or else and Carnaby discovers the gateway to Thut's stash and takes the ring, so Thut, Nefer, and Sekhem lead the afterlife to head to modern-day London, where plenty of silly antics occur, and maybe even love or whatever. Honestly, there's another way to view the plot in my opinion. Have two people from another world not get along, something precious to one of them was stolen, so they leave that world to head to the real world, don't understand the ways of our world to their world, and fall in love while trying to get through their own struggles back home. I could say this plot is cliche, but I say it before and I say it again. I don't think a cliche plot can be bad depending on its execution, but boy is it bad. To give this movie any positives, one would be the voice acting, though I wouldn't really single anyone out, but it's just not awful is my point. I guess the other would be the animation, which I wouldn't say looks cheap, except for when apparently the mummies are in the real world when someone flashes light on them, sort of. Basically, their entire bodies are covered except for the head, so when someone flashes light on them, it's shown their heads as skulls, but not like, detailed skulls like in Coco. No, it looks like face paint, but other than that, it's passable. That being said, what did I dislike? The story is really bad and generic. Like I said, with this formula, people in the real world, though, they usually have stories like this happen in New York City, and I thought if it was London, this was addressing the British Museum controversies. No, in fact, Thut sees his trophies on exhibit and thinks it's cool. It's just till Carnaby wants to kidnap them to put on display, even though you found a portal to the afterlife. That's your moneymaker right there! That would make you more famous than any architect alive or dead. I feel like who's done that? Anyways, the first part of the movie where they're in this afterlife, I thought the movie was dull but not awful. It just wasn't interesting. Where it's a pretty boring afterlife where I don't understand how any of it works, like any of them age or can die again, since the characters worry about body damage or death itself, even though they are already dead. There are tons of children there, so I have tons of questions. So I have no idea what horrors happened to them. Maybe they go to wherever you go if you die without being mummified. I don't know. Why does the princess even need to be married? Why is there royalty even in this afterlife? What's the point? Whatever, ignoring that, how does the story unfold? Well, how the story unfolds makes it worse. In London, they do all the tropes, like not knowing fashion, so no one questions why they're dressed like mummies the whole time, for some reason. So they go shopping, where Walk Like an Egyptian plays over it. And not only was there an earlier musical number that I guess was within the movie's context, she sang for real, since after that, that's how the rest of the music works. Or it's needle drops at that, or Nickelback. Like, my brother walked in on that scene with Nickelback, and he's like, is that Nickelback? And despite not hearing the song herself, Nefer sings Walk Like an Egyptian at the end, since people know that song, and that's why they used it. I didn't care for the romance, I didn't care about the characters. Thut's arc is that he's afraid to ride again, which seems understandable since the opening made me think he died. None of the jokes landed, and before you ask, yes, they do the poses like hieroglyphics, like this stupid thing. I don't know. Yeah, and the ratio of this video does not allow me to show off, and frankly, I don't care. But you know what it is, and you know not to do it. It's dumb. But whatever. Well, actually, not whatever. That's the point. Don't watch this movie. It's a generic kids movie that is too dumb to understand itself why this movie is dumb. It's passable in that sense, as in it's made for dumb people. But I'm not convinced why I should care, much less like it. It's someone's fault by my own for watching it, and I'll take that to my grave. If you get joy out of that, if you don't. And with that being said, I give Mummies a 3 out of 10. I grew up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a big fan of the 2012 show and seen a lot of the other movie shows or other forms of media to come from this franchise elsewhere because of that. Like the reruns of the 2003 show on Nicktoons, the first season at least, maybe the first 5 episodes of season 2. The first 2 movies from the 90s, which I should rewatch since everyone will always say the first one is an underrated film, not like in the first Michael Bay movie. And I think in the second one was okay. I read the original comic that started it all, because I found it at when I went to a doctor's visit as a kid once, so it was there, and I really enjoyed it. And though Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie was fine, I will say I'm not really a big fan anymore. I mean, I still love and respect it for what it is, but you know, as I get older, I move on to, I just move on to new things. Like this movie. No, what I'm saying is, though, is that I still have tons of respect for the franchise. That really was such a goofy concept, originally meant for parody, then became a kids show, to sometimes find the middle ground between adult and for children. I honestly wanted an R-rated TMNT movie as the next step for them, and I guess The Last Ronin will kind of be that, since whoever Mutant Mayhem is not that, but let me make that clear. This is probably the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, without a doubt. With a screenplay by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, Jeff Rowe, and Dan Hernandez, and Benji Smith, with Rowe in the director's chair and Rogen being the face for the marketing. The thing you'll see the most with interviews is that the people being wowed that the Turtles are, you know, voiced by actual teenagers this time, which I wasn't against, especially seeing the trailer, but I did have this thought that in the back of my mind that it just make it more for kids because of that. And let me say, it was the right call. Mutant Mayhem is an anime film that was so worth seeing on the big screen because of that, but is another take on TMNT that I really enjoy. It may not be, you know, the definitive movie I would see for the Ninja Turtles, but that doesn't make it bad. You know, as its own thing, it excels. The 4 brothers, Leo, voiced by Nicholas Cantu, Donnie, voiced by Micah Abbey, Mikey, voiced by Shaman Brown Jr., and Raph, voiced by Brady Noon, has been raised by their surrogate father Splinter, voiced by Jackie Chan, where the 4 are shunned by society for being mutants and live in the sewers, with Splinter wanting nothing to do with the human world, and the brothers wanting nothing more to live normal lives. Trained with ninjutsu to defend themselves, the Turtles live their routine lives until they meet a human teenager named April, voiced by Ayo Edebiri, who proposes I just said her name wrong, probably. I should check ID to fix it. She's gonna be a star, you know. She's like in everything now. Or was like, yeah. So April proposes they team up to take down the dangerous villain Superfly, voiced by Ice Cube, so society will view them as heroes. Only discover Superfly leads a gang of his own mutant family that could spell Doom for, you know, New York City. Oh, Mayhem for New York City. That's what I wanted to say. Well, I said I wanted an R-rated TMNT movie. I honestly saw it being so serious that it works as a tension or parody. But this movie works at taking a look at something I always wanted Ninja Turtles to do, or at least done better. That being wanted to be accepted by society. Other versions, I wanted them to end the shows with them being revealed to the world. I think it'd be the perfect series finale for those shows for it to come together. But, you know, that didn't happen. Here's the... well, that. Here, the Ford Desire isn't like that new, but it's done really well thanks to the writing and the performances, which all 4 shine, and you can tell each one put their all into their roles. The whole cast does, which sure most of them probably did their characters in a day or two, but Jackie Chan, who's usually in anime movies involving martial arts because I guess it's a law, gives a freaking good performance as Splinter. Less about being this wise master and this lonely father who loves his kids more than anything, and really you understand his plight, but so do the Turtles. You know, it's really relatable, surprisingly. I like the Turtles here, that maybe except for Donnie, who again isn't bad, but it isn't the genius he is in the other shows, which is fine. He was honestly probably my favorite character of the 4. You know, we always have our favorite Ninja Turtle. Not necessarily he would probably be the one who wins the fight in the, you know, all four. No, he probably would not. But all four are distinct, and if this was the first time I've been introduced to these characters, I still would care about them a lot. There's so much about this movie I like and love. For the most part, I thought this movie was really good, but I wouldn't call it great. But I like about the story, as I said, the pacing is so well done. It never drags or feels longer or shorter than it needs to be. I don't think this is, you know, this should be the definitive version of the characters, as I said, but but as its own thing, I think this really works well. The soundtrack is really good. My favorite sequence in the movie might be the No Diggity scene, where the four take on four different groups shown in a montage, each taking one down right next to the other. I love the animation. It's really distinct with the sketchiness and somewhat ugly designs. Hell, the final boss in the movie is really gross, even for kids. And it tells me this movie respects its audience, not to make it, you know, too kid-friendly. Like, no, this does feel like it's made for all ages. I love Ice Cube's performance, and while I feel like an earlier draft, Stockman would have been turned into Superfly, I think it's better that none of the mutants want to be, you know, normal animals or people. You know, they just want to be accepted. So, you know, it's like you see both sides of the argument. And since Superfly is the only one who doesn't make jokes, or no one makes jokes about him, he feels like a real threat in this movie. And the things I have are that maybe too many side characters, because, you know, easily you could get rid of some, and I probably wouldn't have cared. Like, unless you did grow up with them, yeah, I don't really know which ones I take or keep or leave or whatever. There's also this item in the movie introduced to the audience that plays an important part in the climax, but the characters would have no idea what it is. Other than that, I think this movie is really good. Oh, I think it's great in many ways. Like, it's very funny, and sure, the references were a bit much, but I was surprised how well it does tie into the ending for it to not be pointless. Like, there is a point to it. What made me leave this movie thinking it was great was its ending, where it actually felt sweet and earned, and I'm glad that this movie has these lessons for children done before, but works here for me to care. And it felt like this is something that anyone can enjoy of any age. Sure, this isn't like the best movie of the year, but whatever. Like, you know, who cares about that bar to cross? It's a good movie in its own right, and if they do a sequel, I'm so up for it. I think this is a great movie regardless of your opinion of TMNT prior, and as its own, Mutant Mayhem is a great time for kids and adults, and I'm really glad I saw it on the big screen. I give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem an 8 out of 10.